Will you please welcome Magi Gibson?
Thank you, Lorraine, for that lovely introduction. And thank you, Doctor. And I do mean thank you, because this information needs to get out there. It's our girls and our boys in schools that are being affected by this. I'm only a couple of sentences in, I've already gone off script. But the introduction I got, not on my biographical note at the moment, is that I am one of the 2 cancelled women poets in Scotland for speaking out calmly and respectfully, both of us, since 2015 to defend women's rights and protections under law and to point out the weaknesses of self-ID. Weaknesses we've seen playing out all too brutally in the last week. I have just this week also been removed from the Scottish Book Trust's Register of Scottish Authors, an important way of accessing funding for writers and poets, because I refuse to sign up to a new code of conduct I believe would limit my freedom of speech and freedom of artistic expression. I'm getting a bit emotional here. I have been on the register for over 30 years. But what I'm here to talk about is poetry and language. There will be no trigger warnings, but I think you've sat through the first bit of your time. Perhaps you think of poetry, if you think of it at all, as pretty words about flowers, stars, and nice things. But poetry can also be political and feminist. Indeed, the very act of women writing poetry is political. Take the poet Salma in India, removed from school at 12 because she had started menstruating. Then being confined inside her home for 10 years until she would accept an arranged marriage. Salma, in her isolation, started to write poems. She managed to get them smuggled out in the folds of saris going to be laundered, and a friend posted them to a literary magazine where they were published. Her husband, when he found out, threatened to throw acid in her face if she continued to write. She continued to write. And what she did was she slept with her baby boy hugged close to her head, so her husband would not throw acid on her while she slept. Now, she, as a baby, a few weeks old, was given away by her parents, the father really. So the value between the baby boy and the baby girl was huge. Salma's act of writing was political in itself, but even more so was that she wrote about her woman's body, about accepting sex with her husband in exchange for him buying her sanitary protection. So women's poetry is not all about flowers, stars, and nice things. A phrase directed on social media a couple of years ago at the courageous and talented poet Jenny Lindsay, who is here with us today and is the other cancelled poet in Scotland. The full line directed to her on a Facebook comment was, why can't she just write poems about flowers, stars and nice things? In fact, what Jenny had done to offend was to write and perform a feminist show, This Script, and then publish an essay, The Anatomy of a Hounding, exposing how she was vilified and ostracised by people on the Scottish poetry scene and literary scene for doing no more than standing up for women's rights. But we shouldn't be surprised. Forcing women's voices out of the public sphere is hardly new. Historian Mary Beard, in an essay called The Public Voice of Women, explains how the roots of this sex bias against women's voices stretches back to ancient Greece and Rome and how it still influences society more than 2 millennia later. In ancient Greek and Rome, Barry explains, women's voices were expected to be heard only in the domestic sphere. She quotes one commentator from the 2nd century as saying, "A woman should as modestly guard against exposing her voice to outsiders as she would guard against slipping off her clothes." That comment took me right back to when I first started writing an all-women writing group in Stirling over 3 decades ago. Even in that single-sex space, I was nervous, embarrassed even, to read out what I'd written. When I got home, I wrote a poem that began, "Stripping in public might just be easier. You could giggle at the lumps and bumps of breasts and thighs I bear." I had never read the fellow from 2,000 years ago, yet there I was, suffering shame and embarrassment using the exact same stripping in public analogy because it's so deep-rooted in our culture. But it's no wonder women way too often bide their wheesht. The first use of a scold's bridle was recorded as punishment at the Sheriff Court in Lanark here in Scotland in 1567. Now, a scold's bridle is a kind of iron helmet locked onto a woman's head, but with straps covering her face, locked with a padlock, and sometimes with a spike to pierce her tongue if she tried to speak. That's in the Museum of Scotland in Edinburgh. A punishment designed to silence, publicly humiliate, and serve as a warning to any other woman who might speak too forthrightly. This is our inheritance. So you might think, oh, this is all history. We don't treat women who want to speak out, women who want to engage in the public and political sphere like that anymore. Distant in time it may be, Mary Beard warns us, but I want to underline this. It's a tradition to which we are still directly or indirectly the heirs. In Scotland, in 2023, this desire to silence and punish women's dissenting voices now manifests itself in placards saying, "Decapitate TERFs," in tweets with photos of men wielding barbed wire-bound baseball bats and sharp knives, in threats of throat punching, in cancellation and no platforming, in women losing jobs and careers, in young men pulling on black balaclavas and trying to stop women meeting, to stop women's voices being heard. Yet when a man expresses the same or a similar point of view, he gets little kickback, as journalist James Kirkup and others have attested. Nor is his language tone policed in anything like the same way. After a poetry reading in Glasgow some years ago, a man approached me at the bar. He had a problem with me, a problem that turned itself into a poem. Always try and get something positive out of bad situations. "I don't like women who swear," he says, eyeballing her like a minister from the pulpit. "Most unladylike," he opines. "You are educated, intelligent, attractive, well able to express yourself in other ways." "Fuck off," she says. Of course, women are conditioned to be kind and not to express anger. It's unladylike. A woman who rages, even with good reason and against injustice, is somehow supposed to be betraying her sex. She is a harridan, a shrill hyena, a shrieking harpy. Even when women talk calmly, we are accused of being too aggressive and too loud. We are also accused of talking too much, a myth debunked by research, and most pointedly by the wonderful Canadian Mayor Sue Montgomery, who decided to knit in council meetings. In red when men were speaking, In green, when women were speaking. Now the numbers, the balance on the committees were pretty even. Yet the result was masses of red, the men, with some broken small patches of green, a striking visual representation of what researchers have also consistently found. In meetings, men talk more than women and dominate the discussion. So that's what we say, it's how much we say, and the tone in which we say it, all causing offence. You'd think that at least if we speak about the realities of that very female sphere, the female body, we'd be on safer ground, regarded as the experts. American poet Sharon Olds, who writes devastatingly honestly about the female body, she has written a whole book of odes. Ode to the clitoris, ode to the breasts, ode to the hymen, even ode to a tampon, had her early work rejected when she first submitted her poetry to literary magazines. This was the 1970s, but really, well, what was it? They told me, Old says, this is a literary magazine. The true subjects of poetry are male subjects. Thankfully, she persevered. The 70s might seem like a long time ago, but in terms of women's position in society, women's voices in society, it is an eye blink, and has been frighteningly demonstrated most recently in Afghanistan and in 1979 in Iran. Women's rights to education, to work, to sing and dance, to even leave the house unaccompanied by a male relative can be lost overnight. In Scotland, writing and speaking freely about the physical realities of being a woman, about our breasts and vaginas, about the joys and despairs of menstruation, menopause, about childbirth, and even writing about infertility. In Scotland, mostly made by, these advances were mostly made by second-wave feminists who also fully explored all this in their poetry. In second-wave feminism, we fought to reclaim the language we wanted to use about our female bodies, reclaim it from medical men who even made decisions about our bodies without our input, reclaim it from shame and embarrassment, both used to control women. And now women's right to describe who we are with words like even woman and mother are under attack. We are dehumanised and dewomanised by being called cervix havers, bleeders, menstruators, reducing us to body parts and body functions. Suddenly we no longer breastfeed our babies, we chest feed. It's too easy to dismiss this as no more than minor adjustments to accommodate a minority group with disadvantaged status. Well, that's what we're told. Women themselves are a disadvantaged group in Scotland. Glasgow City Council women employees had to take the council to court to win equal pay. Payouts of £770 million are still to be made and were only agreed in November 2022. When you alter, modify, take away the language of a historically undermined and disadvantaged group, that is a political act, an act of disempowerment. That an SNP government cannot see what is happening here with language as regards women and stand against it is shocking. Attempts were made in the past to eradicate Gaelic as a language in Scotland with the hope of undermining and eradicating the culture of Scottish Gaelic speakers and breaking their spirit. Until recently, Scottish children were being educated out of the Scots language, only allowed in school to use proper English. The SNP understands that these were political attempts at assimilation into another culture, a creeping cultural colonisation for political dominance. Changing language is never a neutral act, and the SNP knows this, or why else would they be putting Gaelic road signs and town signs up all over the country? Yet in the past few years, women are expected to cede the language of their sex, the language that expresses their material reality. Politicians' attempts to be one assumes what they think as progressive, and I call virtue signalling, don't think twice about referring to us as if we are a subset of women, cis women, biological women. We have even been referred to as non-trans women. More rolling eyes up here. 5 years ago, we were women, a well-defined political group. If we cannot self-define as a distinct political class, we cannot fight for and preserve rights and laws to protect our specific needs as women. No political class or category can both be defined by what it is and be inclusive of what it is not. But the SNP of all parties who fight for independence and the right to draw political borders and boundaries and say thus far and no further, is not aware of the danger to women of what they are promoting through the self-ID bill is astounding. I was in an online group called Women in the Arts in Scotland a few years ago. Twice we had moderators attempting to censor women members. On each occasion, the stramash was triggered when women posted vulva art. Think American artist Georgia O'Keeffe. The art was different from that, but it was beautiful and it was skilled and it was not offensive. Yet in this Women in the Arts group, vulva art was deemed offensive. Had I joined a group of Calvinistic prudes? No, we were told that out of our respect for our trans sisters in our women's group, we should not post any art featuring women's body parts. In fact, we should not mention vaginas or vulvas at all. A clitoris would be absolutely beyond the pale. Now, remember how Sharon Olds and many others, including myself, were being told by men in the second half of the 20th century what we could and could not write our poetry about? Anyway, an artist friend of mine wandered in the middle of the thread and, not having read it all, just commented and said, "What's wrong with saying vagina?" And was instantly chucked out. Banned. I dedicate this next poem to her. Now, the poem, its title, because it's such a shocking word, is V asterisk 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 A. And this happened at a poetry reading, right? Before she reads, the poet apologises. The next poem has, whisper it softly, a vagina in it. And I'm wondering why the utterance of that softly vibrating "voo" up front, opening to an eager "ah," before that juicily squelching central on its heels that cry of "ah, ah, ah," dropping to a moaning and then the grand finale, the climactic, the lip-parted gasp of would offend. Get a grip, I want to shout. This is the second millennium. We are a poetry audience who must have met the odd vagina before, celebrated in succulent syllables and velvet vowels, opening and closing like sea anemones, eulogized in metaphors of orchids, rosebuds, bearded clams, buzzing bees, serenaded as quivering quims, fuzzy fuds, giddy gardens of divine delight. Hi, some of us even have our very own discreetly tucked away between our thighs. Yes, right here with us in this hall tonight. So, here's some advice for all female poets. When you're about to read a poem with a vagina in it, don't be a cunt. Never apologise. And poetry can be a power tool for change, and it's a way of fighting back, as I've just shown. It drills down to find the deep truth of the matter, what is hidden, and brings it to the surface in the light. It's a power tool women have used in the past. Black American poets like June Jordan and Audre Lorde in the civil rights movements. Audre Lorde famously wrote, "Your silence will not protect you, nor will your kindness," I'd like to add. So where now for women's poetry of witness, protest and dissent? I'm currently collecting poems written by women in the struggle in this war on women. I want to form an archive of everything I receive, and this is open to all women, as well as publish an anthology of selected poems. Sonia Appleby, some of you might know from Twitter, who's a black poet from Wales, Colette Colfer in Ireland, and Jenny Lindsay, who I mentioned before, in Scotland, are all on board. Brave women poets who refuse to be bullied, cowed, censored or silenced. But my final poem, this poem, to partly demonstrate the power of political feminist poetry, this poem of protest burst from me after reading about a court case, a rape case. Some of you might still remember. A case that makes it clear just how much the female sex are valued less in society. And wee bits of paper thrown. I hate when this happens, sorry. There we are. No angel. It's about a court case. And the little girl had been raped. And this leads up to what the judge said. No angel. She was 9 and half her milk teeth gone because she'd kissed the boys behind the shed, and she listened in on big girl, bad girl jokes and laughed until she wet her knickers, though she never understood what was so funny. She was only 9 but already knew the ins and outs of sexual intercourse. They'd done it in class with Miss Jones, and she'd seen it on the telly a million times, though she never looked, not really, just pretended while she counted the leaves on the weeping fig. And she might well have known a condom if she'd met one in the street, and it cannot be denied she'd played kiss, kick, torture, and enjoyed it, and snogged Jamie from the high school for 10 minutes under the chute without taking a breath, with 3 independent witnesses. So it shouldn't have surprised you, not really, when her past was revealed in court, and the judge, with all the wisdom of his wig, the judge, with all the gravity of his gown, revealed that the victim, the 9-year-old victim of the sex attack, was no angel. Thank you very much.